Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The wildfire situation here in Western Canada is elevated, and emergency officials both federally and provincially have an update for us. We see a first-hand training session involving new firefighting recruits here in Lethbridge. And Jewish students from Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec say post-secondaries in Canada need to do more to protect them and the anti-Semitism which is running rampant at both colleges and universities.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Federal emergency officials say there are currently 90 wildfires burning in Canada, but the situation is better than last year. They say the risk of wildfires is highest in the west, with almost 50% of the fires burning in both Alberta and British Columbia. 7 are currently listed as out of control. Officials say more money from this year's federal budget will be going to support firefighting efforts across the country.
That is what we are doing through Budget 2024 by adding $166 million to better support communities prepare for and fight wildfires. We're also doing things differently this year by offering advance payments to all communities so they can prepare earlier, incorporating traditional knowledge in their strategies and funding emergency management coordinators in more communities.
Federal officials warn ongoing drought conditions mean the risk of damaging wildfires is high, and note that the pattern of months of warmer than average weather is expected to continue. You know, there are currently 40 active wildfires burning here in Alberta. Forestry and Parks Minister Todd Loewen says newer technology is really helping emergency officials to keep on top of the wildfires and where they may break out.
Our fire weather monitoring system, for instance, allows Alberta wildfire staff to actively track temperature, relative humidity, precipitation, and wind direction and speed throughout the forest protection area. This helps us stay on top of wildfire danger and plan for elevated wildfire risk in certain areas. Budget 2024 also provides funding for upgrades to this fire weather monitoring system, ensuring optimal wildfire response now and for years to come. One of the other ways Alberta government is helping communities prepare for wildfires is through the Community Fire Guard program. Last week, my ministry announced an additional $14 million investment in that program, ensuring more communities throughout the province will be able to incorporate Fire Guard construction into their wildfire prevention and mitigation strategy.
It was training day today for 7 Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services recruits. Now, the young firefighters are learning various survival skills to help save lives. As BCN's Heidi Echevarria explains, the new recruits say this is a special way they can serve our community.
Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services have new recruits who have been undergoing special training since last April. Captain Sean Larkin describes some of the training the young firefighters are going through.
We've been teaching them over the last couple of weeks how to save victims from a burning building, how to put out fire and control where the fire is going in a building. Today it's all about their own safety. So when things go wrong inside that burning building, what they can do to save themselves. 80% of the time when something goes wrong and we're trapped inside of a burning building, it's us that has to get ourselves out. So
during the intensive 12-week training, several rescue and survival tasks will be carried out. That includes the window hand technique, which is used when a building is very hot and they need to get out quickly without falling to the ground. Trainees are also taught how to get out from a place where there are no windows. They will go through the wall until they reach a safer room while looking for an exit. Stephen Alexson and Dorothy Graham are some of the new recruits. They talk about what it means for them to be part of the Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services.
I absolutely love what I'm doing here. Everybody's kind of on the same team. They all seem to have the same passion for the fire service and helping others. So I've been a volunteer firefighter for almost 5 years now.
I'm thrilled to be here as part of Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services. It's something I've been working for a few years now, and it's awesome to see all that hard work pay off. I'm having a really great time bonding. There's the 7 of us in our recruit class, so it's really nice to be making those connections in this department in the city that I grew up in. And I feel like I'm more invested and involved in the community. That really means a lot to me. To do different things to solve the same problem every time that we encounter it. So that's what a lot of our evolutions try and tackle is like, okay, we've trained it this way, but what if you're not able to do X this time? So you have to anticipate Y or whatever.
Some of the requirements of being a Lethbridge firefighter is that you have to be 18 or older, be registered with the Alberta College of Paramedic as a primary care paramedic. For Bridge City News, I'm Heidi Echavarria.
Congrats going out to the graduates. By the way, the graduation ceremony for the new recruits will be coming up on June the 3rd. In an effort to conserve water and reduce water consumption by 20% by the year 2030, Lethbridge city officials say they're taking proactive steps now to reduce water consumption. They say this year they're hoping to cut water use by around 10% through various measures. That includes cutting back how often fleet and transit vehicles are washed, adjusting sweeping practices to reduce water use, flushing hydrants only as needed, reducing water usage when washing bridges and signs, and turning off decorative fountains when water restrictions are in place. Officials say other departments, including Parks and Recreation, will also cut back in managing irrigation and maintenance of green spaces. You know, as the province announced water sharing agreements, more and more Albertans are preparing for potential drought this summer. You can include former Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman in the conversation. He lives in the Beaver Mines area of Pincher Creek. He says for him and his family, it's all about capturing rainwater as the reservoirs in his area have run dry.
We have a reservoir, the Old Man Reservoir is here, but it's been almost empty. The Crow's Nest River ran dry in the middle of the winter. Last year, we ran out of well water about mid-September. Our wells ran dry in this area, and I'm in the process now of getting extra storage totes in order to store rainwater. We've doubled the depth of our wells, and we want to store a couple of thousand liters of rainwater to water our gardens. So there's likely to be a water shortage if the precipitation dries up this week and we have a long, hot summer.
Well, Jeanette Rocher is now with a quick peek at the forecast. Jeanette, even though we received a little bit of rain recently, it has still been a fairly dry spring so far. And soon it may feel more like summer leading up to Mother's Day this weekend.
Oh, you said the magic word there, Hal, as summer is my favorite season, and it's going to feel just like that this weekend, all weekend long. And look at that. We are making that jump from the teens up to the 20s, going from 17 to 24 by tomorrow. And actually, we got a bit higher than that 17 today. Last I looked, it was at 18. But anyways, we're soon going to be done with those teens and into the 20s, like I said, 24. And wait till you see the Mother's Day forecast. We're going to be high 20s. I'll be back later in the show to tell you all about that.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Regina Conservative MP Andrew Scheer says the constant spending by the Trudeau government continues to cause inflation. He cites a recent report by the Bank of Canada which says mortgage rates are set to go up yet again.
His inflationary deficits are pushing up inflation and interest rates. That's because when the Prime Minister goes into the markets and borrows billions and billions to fund his spending spree, that bids up the interest rates for everyone else. And a new report from the Bank of Canada is shocking. Average mortgage payments will rise by more than 20% in the next couple of years. Where the heck are Canadian families supposed to come up with an extra few $100s just to pay higher mortgage payments for the homes they already own?
Last week, the Conservative leader said he is going to ignore our charter rights.
That's right.
This week, a Conservative MP stood up in this House and said he's opposed to a woman's right to choose. And now Conservative MPs are outside attacking a woman's right to choose. So now we know the truth. They're going to attack our charter rights. They're going to attack the rights of every woman in Canada.
A former Alberta senior civil servant is poised to become our next provincial ethics commissioner. A legislature committee has recommended Sean McLeod for the job, which involves making sure politicians in the House follow ethics rules. McLeod is a former deputy minister for Labour Relations. The opposition NDP is questioning the appointment, saying it's supposed to be someone who's nonpartisan. McLeod once ran for a nomination for the governing United Conservatives. A union boss here in Alberta has come out swinging against NDP leadership hopeful Naheed Nenshi. Ricky Brar, who's the Unifor Local 4001 president, said when Nenshi was the mayor of Calgary, he betrayed workers and therefore will not be supporting Nenshi's leadership bid. Now, in a statement, Brar says back in 2019, Nenshi made a request to the UCP government to amend the Alberta Labour Relations Code, specifically to facilitate the privatization of public services by stripping away successor rights is nothing short of a betrayal. He says Mr. Nenchi's compass points to convenience rather than conviction, a concerning trait for someone who aims to lead his province. Police in Medicine Hat have busted 4 drug dealers and a large shipment was intercepted. The folks from Alert say $90,000 worth of methamphetamine and cocaine was confiscated. The seizures took place on April the 11th and 30th during a couple of vehicle stops. A vehicle was also seized. 59-year-old Aaron Hodgson, 34-year-old Melissa Spack, 31-year-old Terry Van Heusen, and 25-year-old Heidi Clampett, all of Medicine Hat, face various drug-related charges. Police say their investigation began last February in response to community concerns related to drug trafficking in Medicine Hat. You know, when it comes to crime here in southern Alberta, the RCMP say rural crime has actually decreased. They say from January to March, compared to the same period last year, there have been 76 fewer people crime-related offences, 213 fewer property crimes, and 373 less total criminal code offences. They also say that break-and-enters have dropped 18.4%, motor vehicle thefts have decreased 21.9%, and theft under $5,000 has dropped 17.7%. Officials with the RCMP say these stats show the great work police are doing to combat rural crime. Well, it was day 2 of testimony in the trial of Jeremy Skibicki, who admitted to killing 4 women back in 2022. The court heard today that both clothing and jewelry were found in Skibicki's home. He admitted to the killings, but his lawyers are arguing that he's not criminally responsible because of mental illness. Voting wrapped up on Thursday for Saskatchewan teachers on whether or not they have a new collective agreement with the province. So far, negotiations have been somewhat combative. Teachers pulled back volunteer services to back their demands, and the province is warning it could extend the school year if teachers reject the latest contract offer. 6 Jewish students from Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec say universities are failing to protect them from anti-Semitism on campus. They brought their message to Ottawa on Thursday.
There's government funding going to these institutions that make us feel unsafe. And some of these institutions where Jewish students have been physically harmed by other students, and I've had professors use the term academic freedom wrongly and share information that is basically untrue. So I think that, while we're saying that something needs to be done, I think that university administrators need to learn, and I think there should be a government support on this, that they need to do something or there will be some consequences that take place. What those consequences may be will be dependent on per case scenario, I should say, in my ideal world. But I think there needs to be better acknowledgement that our government funding is going to these institutions that are not keeping us safe anymore.
As it relates to penalising people who are in universities who engage in anti-Semitism, I think really at the end of the day, all we're asking is that universities follow their own policies. So if a university determines that something is hate speech towards Jewish people, I would expect them to act in exactly the same way that they would in the context of hate speech for any other group of people.
The reports coming out of the Gaza Strip that the Israel Defense Forces have uncovered a large amount of tunnels underneath the city of Rafah, which they say were used by the terrorist group Hamas. According to TBN Israel correspondent Yair Pinto, the tunnels in Rafah have been used for many years for smuggling in weapons, people, and money for Hamas.
For Hamas, the Rafah area is an oxygen lifeline. And for the past 20 years, it has been actively running a vast industry based on smuggling weapons, people, cash, and all manner of consumer goods through the tunnels running under the border with Egypt. For this reason, control of the city of Rafah is of great strategic importance for Hamas. However, as noted by CNN, the IDF moved into Rafah following a month in which neither side made any big moves, indicates that the limited operation is intended to put pressure on Hamas to accept the ceasefire outline and the release of the hostages. Of the 133 hostages still being held in the Gaza Strip, most are believed to be in Rafah, probably held in tunnels underneath the city.
You know, having different generations in the workplace can be rewarding, but yet sometimes challenging. Sociologist Dr. Scott DeLong says the older generation must recognize and be sensitive to the fact that many of our younger generation are more in tune with their needs. He says there's much to be learned.
The younger generations are much more in tune to their needs, and they should be. The older generations, we take a look at it and say, well, just get on with it, move on. Things happen, move on. And while that gets things done faster, it the depth with the concern for what's inside the person really does matter.
Make sure you catch the full interview with sociologist and author Dr. Scott DeLong and myself coming up in the second half of our program. Well, Mother's Day is coming up on Sunday, and it's very important to remember all of our moms. Now, the lead pastors of Parallel Church, Kelly and Joylyn Stickle, say it's also important for moms not to compare themselves to other mothers. Pastor Joylyn Stickle says, sadly, social media has played a major role in that regard.
I feel like social media has been horrible for this because people, they post their highlight reels and they don't see the behind the scenes, and every one of us has a behind the scenes, right? And even if we do have the highlight reels, there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of work with mothering and with disciplining and with taking time for yourself or whatever that goes into the good times. And so if every mother could just understand that they're not alone.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Pastors Kelly and Joylyn Stickle from Parallel Church and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up in the second half of our program. We enjoy lots of sunshine in Lethbridge again today, along with above average temperatures, and the mercury will be climbing even more over the next few days. A full look at the weather pictures on deck. We had a few clouds today in Lethbridge and nice and warm. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, it should warm up even more as we head to Mother's Day. We may even have to pull out a little sunscreen this weekend.
Yeah, well, you know how you actually could, because we are going to start seeing those high UV indexes beginning this weekend, as we're seeing highs moving into the mid-20s and beyond. So 24 on both Friday and Saturday, up to 26 on Sunday. That means UV indexes of 6 and 7, which are considered high. So by all means, break out that sunscreen for sure. And then after Sunday, we are going back into the teens, 17 for high. And we could see a slight chance of showers on Monday as we start out with sun and cloud, developing clouds, and then that a slight chance. And then by Monday evening, more moving towards that 60% chance of showers. And then back to 19 on Tuesday with partly cloudy skies and 20 degrees on a Wednesday. Not bad at all. So average high for this time of year, 17, average low, 3 degrees. Record high on this day was 29. That happened back in 1987, and the record low on this day happened back in 1968. It was a chilly -4. Sun rose this morning at 5:54 a.m. and our sun set this evening at 9:02, giving us 15 hours and 8 minutes of daylight, 2 minutes more daylight hours, more minutes, I should say, 2 minutes longer than yesterday. There we go. Okay, West Coast looking at fairly clear skies. Victoria, light wind, 30K wind by the Wanda Fuca Strait, 21 degrees, but feeling more like 18 as you get closer to that water there. 19 for a high in Vancouver. Very warm, though, further inland, more like 26 in clear skies. Beautiful across Alberta tomorrow, 27 for a high in Edmonton, and Calgary's high tomorrow, 26 degrees with lots of sunshine. As we get to the rest of the prairies, fairly nice conditions as well. A beautiful 25 in Saskatoon, 23 in Regina, and tomorrow's high in Winnipeg, 21 degrees with clear skies all the way across those prairies as well. As we get into central Canada, Toronto seeing some morning showers there, 30% chance, 16 for a high, 19 the expected high in Ottawa, and a high of 17 tomorrow in Montreal with clear skies. As we get into Atlantic Canada, over in the Maritimes, 14 is the expected high tomorrow in Fredericton. Halifax sitting at 10 degrees. Could see some a 60% chance of showers or drizzle. Also some fog dissipating in the morning there. Same thing. We're going to see some clearing skies in Charlottetown and dissipating fog. 11 for a high there, and a high of 5 degrees in St. John's tomorrow with mainly cloudy skies. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Canadian Utilities says it plans to build a new natural gas pipeline to supply a massive net zero petrochemical project being built northeast of Edmonton. The subsidiary of Calgary-based holding company ATCO says the $2 billion pipeline will be the company's largest ever energy infrastructure project. The 200-kilometer-long pipeline would run from the hamlet of Piers in west central Alberta to the northeast Edmonton area. Construction is expected to begin in 2026, with the pipeline in operation the following year. The president of London Drugs is apologizing for a cybersecurity incident that closed stores in Western Canada last week. A letter from Clint Mallman says the good news, however, is that there is no evidence to suggest that customers' databases were compromised. The Richmond, BC-based company says it is still investigating the April 28th incident. Mallman says London Drugs works with experts and independent auditors to ensure its systems are secure. He says, however, that no organization can be completely safe from cybersecurity threats. Saskatoon-based Nutrient says its earnings were down 71% in the first quarter. The company says lower net fertilizer selling prices were the primary reason for its low earnings. Nutrient says it earned $165 million in the first quarter. That is down from $576 million a year earlier. The company also reported increased retail earnings, higher fertilizer sales volumes, and lower natural gas costs. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 116 points on the day to finish at 22,375. The Dow was up 331 points to 39,387. The S&P 500 was up 26 on the day to 5214, and the Nasdaq was up 43 points to 16,346. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 57 cents to 79.56 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 12 cents to 2.31 US. Gold was up 37.48 on the day to 23.4633 US an ounce, and silver was up 99 cents to 28.32 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.20 per bushel, barley's at $6.42, canola's at $13.85, and corn is at $7.95 per bushel. Live cattle June contract was down 53 cents to 175.95. Feeder cattle were down $1.55 to 238.65, and lean hogs were down 55 cents to 91.98. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.10 US. Recapping one of our top stories, federal emergency officials say there are currently 90 wildfires burning in Canada, but the situation is better than last year. They say the risk of wildfires is highest in the west, with almost 50% of the fires burning in both Alberta and British Columbia. 7 are currently listed as out of control. Alberta Wildfires says there are currently 40 active wildfires burning here in Alberta. Oftentimes, you see a number of different generations working at the same workplace. Baby boomers mixed with Gen Xers, millennials, and even Gen Zs. So how do we make it all work that we can learn from each other and grow? Sociologist Dr. Scott DeLong has a few thoughts and will share them with us momentarily. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also, be sure to visit our website anytime to check out a number of stories and interviews. Today's workforce appears to be going through some demographic changes with multiple generations working together. Sometimes this has the potential to make for some tension and stress in the workplace, which can impact our overall mental health. Joining us now from Orange County, California to chat about it is Dr. Scott DeLong. He's a sociologist and workplace expert. He's also author of the book, I Thought I Was a Leader, A Journey to Building Trust, Leading Teams, and Inspiring Change. Scott, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much, Hal. I really appreciate your opportunity to be here.
You bet. Now, in your book, you say the landscape is changing, with Gen Zs about to outnumber baby boomers. So where and why are we seeing tensions and stress happening between the different generations here in the workplace?
Well, because there's a gap of 4 generations now, right? You got baby boomers, and then you have the Gen X, then millennials, and then the Gen Z. And typically, you only have a gap of 3 of them instead of 4, but now we have 4. And the larger the gap, the bigger the differences are going to be, just based on our experiences, the things that we have seen versus what they have seen. And you're going to see that. There's communication differences. There are certainly mental health concern differences. Give you a quick example. Those of us in my generation, and I'm 64 years old, so those of us in my generation, we were taught to buck up, dude, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and if you go see a counselor or a psychologist, that's an area of weakness. And yet we taught our children differently. We taught them to be concerned about their feelings and to recognize their feelings. So while they have a completely different point of view on what mental health looks like, it's us, the older generations, that taught them how to do that. And yet we don't embrace that ourselves. So you're going to see gaps. Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting. You even see that in professional sports nowadays. And when I was a kid, and I played football, it was like, okay, you just dislocated your finger, put it back into place and get out for the next play. Or you had the wind knocked out of you, or maybe there's a cracked rib, tape it up and go back out again. But nowadays it's a lot different. So I think you're right, society has changed quite a bit. Now, Scott, when you see a lot of conflict in the workplace, not on the field, to what degree can this affect the mental health of employees?
Oh, absolutely. Conflict, so I reframe conflict to just a difference of opinion. It can turn into a war, a fight, a battle, and those things certainly can affect the mental health of people if they get into a place where they feel that they're not, their experience is not valued, that they don't have a safe place to go. It is going to affect the mental health of people. If we reframe conflict to looking at just a difference of opinion, and that we want to explore those opinions, because there's a lot of reasons to explore difference of opinion. One, it's going to make me smarter. I'm going to have more information if I'm willing to listen and open up. But two, it's going to make a connection better between human beings, right? We talk about respecting others, and respect to me is not just the type of respect that my dad taught me. Respect is earned, it's not given. But respect is more respect for human dignity. And that now more than any other time is so vital, especially when you see these big gaps in the generations. The respect for them, whoever them is, the other group, whether it's the young people looking up to the old people or the old people looking up to the young people, having respect for what it is that who they are, what they know, how they can help and how they can benefit is a big difference. And if we look at it like that, we have less conflict and we just have a difference of opinion and a way for each to teach each other something new about the world that they didn't recognize before.
It's true. When we learn, we grow. I mean, even though I'm a Gen Xer, I work with some millennials and I work with some Gen Z employees here too, and I learn from them as well at the same time. They help teach me something new as I help teach them and maybe nurture and mentor them as well. So it's nice how we learn and grow, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I think I'm going to take that back to a chapter in my book on humility, right? And I frame humility a little bit differently than most people do as well. Humility to me is not thinking less of myself or pushing off the praise that people might give me. It's not that at all. Humility for me is to recognize the human dignity in everybody, and that I can learn from anybody. And whether they're Gen Zs, there's a lot that these folks can teach me. And it's not just on technology, but the whole mental health piece. Like this whole pull yourself up by the bootstrap, great idea, but darn, things happen in life, right? And I could use some support too, if I'd just be willing to open up about it.
So Scott, how are the generations different in their attitudes towards workplace mental health? Compare someone like me who's a Gen Xer versus someone like my son who's a millennial.
Yeah, I think, and it gets even deeper when we talk about the folks in the Gen Z. The younger generations are much more in tuned to their needs, and they should be. The older generations, we take a look at it and say, well, just get on with it, move on. Things happen, move on. And while that gets things done faster, the depth with the concern for what's inside the person really does matter.
So why doesn't a one-size-fits-all generations approach really work for supporting workplace mental health?
Well, one size fits all doesn't work because we have different needs or recognition of the different needs that we have with each other. I'm going to look at it like I don't need the help. I'm just going to get through this. Whereas the younger people actually want some support and want some place to go and talk. But when you get back down to it, we're all human beings and we all have a lot of the same needs. We have the need to feel connection. We have the need to feel that we are valued and that other people consider us worthy. So there is a little bit of a one size fits all approach, but how to get there, right? The one size fits all approach is to make people feel whole. How we go about that is different by the generations.
So Scott, what should companies do to accommodate these generational needs for supporting mental health in the workplace?
It's all about communication with me. So the first thing that I think we need to do is we need to teach our supervisors, our managers, our directors, and our vice presidents that these issues are important and they're real and that they affect the company's bottom line too. It's not just the humanity piece, but it affects the bottom line as well. So if we teach people that these things are real and that we need to take the time to have open communication with folks and that it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable, that those communication can take place. Communication, again, is the key. It is the solution to most of the not serious mental health issues. I'm not talking about psychosis and all that, but I'm talking about the feeling that we belong piece. And having the different generations open up and talk to each other, be a little vulnerable, be a little humble, show some empathy with each other. We're going to make connections a lot deeper.
So how can a company really gauge if they're really hitting the mark on this when it comes to communication? Is there a proper way to potentially evaluate?
Yeah, there really is. And it's a matter of opening your eyes and paying attention. So the first thing that you're going to see when we're not addressing the concerns of people is the high turnover rate. We saw that during COVID, and it has gotten a little bit better, but not a lot better. People are out there looking for new opportunities. What I'm suggesting is that with this open communication policy and processes and feeling for humanity, right, for people, that we're going to have much less turnover. So your turnover rate is the key. The other keys that you take a look for in the business environment is, are people missing deadlines? Is the clarity not there on what's expected of them? If they're not engaging in meetings, if they're not willing to open up and talk, you're going to start seeing those as subtle clues. But the reality is it's going to hit home when people are taking more time off work or if they're switching jobs.
You know, one of my coworkers said it's also called quiet quitting sometimes, you know, when somebody almost goes into a shell and stops the communicating, just does the basics, doesn't go the extra mile anymore, and you start to see that in your fellow coworkers. Now, I'm guessing that sometimes generations communicate a little differently. Some like to communicate via text. They say, why did you call me? You know, just text me, don't call me. And I'm like, what? I'm from the old school. I like to either call somebody or talk to them face-to-face, while even other people prefer online platforms to communicate. So how do we kind of maneuver and work through all of this?
So this is the one area that I think the older generations do a little bit better job with. So we have something that we've created called the communication hierarchy. And what it suggests is that the greater the chance for conflict, meaning just a difference of opinion, the higher up the communication hierarchy we need to go. At the top of it is face-to-face communication. Below that is what we're doing right now, a video call. So I can see your reactions and I can engage with your tone of voice. Below that's a phone call. Below that is email, and below that is text, right? The only thing lower than the text communicate, when there's conflict, potential for conflict meaning you're going to see things differently than I do. That's all, right? The more chance for that, the higher up this ladder we need to go in order to effectively communicate. How often have you seen a text message go wrong? Or an email that someone responds to improperly? So these are some of the things that this older folks are going to need to help the younger people understand the value of this face-to-face communication. Whereas a text is great if someone wants to text, hey, meet you at the movies at 5:30. Great, no conflict there. It's much more efficient to communicate via text and email, but it's not as effective. And I prefer effectiveness over efficiency any day.
A lot less misunderstandings as well. Like you said, if you meet somebody face to face or do a Zoom call or whatever, and yeah, a lot less miscommunication there, right?
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, you start getting these emails going back and forth and they start escalating, right? The tension starts escalating. And as soon as you see this difference of opinion, pick up the phone, walk down the hall. Like, let's get some emotion, let's get some voice into this conversation as opposed to the written language. The written language is almost always read one level below my intention, like one level more hostile than my intention. And it just works out that way. So if I'm going to suggest somebody do something differently, I'm not going to do it via email. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to walk down to their office. I'm going to give them a call and talk about it so that they can see my intention, and then the impact is equal to the intention. Intention and impact are so often different, especially when we're texting or sending emails.
You know, it's funny, a couple of times my mother, when she was still alive, may she rest in peace, she would text me, and a couple of times she had her caps lock on and everything was uppercase, and that usually says you're yelling at somebody, you're angry, right?
Yeah.
And I let her know after. I said, what's, are you okay, Mom? Are you angry? No, I'm not angry. Why do you keep asking me that, right?
See, again, generational divides, right? So you know that uppercase means yelling, and she just thinks it means emphasis. That's all.
So what can we, as the more mature, older generation, learn from our younger colleagues, especially when it comes to communication?
Well, there's so much to learn from them. So if it's true, and it is, that between Gen Z and millennials, more than 50% of our current workforce, that also extrapolates to say that they're probably more than 50% of our current customer base. Our future is in these folks. Do you want me, a baby boomer, making decisions on our future when these folks know what's happening, know what they're going to be needing, right? So what can we learn from them? We can learn what's happening now and in our future. What can they learn from us? Some old tried and true ways. We have experience, we have some wisdom, and sharing that with each other is the key to making this process work. And the sharing it is that communication piece, right? That helps bridge that mental health gap that we're talking about as well. If I just look at them and say, oh, they're just young people and they don't matter and whatever, how are they going to receive that? Or the other way around. He's just an old guy. What does he know, right? As opposed to sharing our information together so that we can both learn and grow. But more than that, we can connect on a human level.
And never start a sentence with, back in my day. That'll put up the walls and close off the communication right away, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to talk about is how to get across ideas, new ideas, or ideas that I'd like to have done. And that is, I consider them. So we discuss what the problem is. All right. Here's a problem. What I come up with, or they come up with, is a potential solution, and then I'll always end with this. What do you think? That is a dialogue starter, right? It's not, we need to do this and we need to do it now. Never do that, right? So what I'll do is come up with a potential solution, say, what I think we ought to do is such and such. What do you think? Get that dialogue going. And you will see that the people will respond to that. They are going to be they welcome the opportunity that I care about what they have to think. And there's age differences and power differences and all of that. But when I reach out to you and say, hey, Hal, what do you think? What does that do? It draws you closer.
It shows you really value them as a person, right?
Absolutely.
So what suggestions, Scott, do you have for people looking for ways to get support for their mental health at work?
It requires a few, and back to those three principles I was talking about: humility, vulnerability, and empathy. Being willing to. In order for that to happen, though, that there has to be psychological safety created within the organization. The psychological safety just means this: that people do not fear of any repercussion for anything that they might say, right? And so it's a top-down driven initiative that leadership has to impose. We are going to create a safe environment for people to be able to communicate. Now, here's the problem with that, though. Anybody in the room can ruin psychological safety. Even if the leader is promoting it and saying, here's what we do and here's how we operate and this is our culture, one person over in the corner rolling their eyes at me as I'm exposing myself will get me to shut down immediately. So it's got to be driven through the entire organization that it's okay. It's okay. This is safe. You can talk to me about this.
Dr. Scott DeLong is author of the book, I Thought I Was a Leader, and it's available at scottdelong.net. Scott, thanks so much for joining us today from Orange County, California.
Thank you, Hal. I really appreciate being here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Every Mother's Day, we buy gifts for our mom and take time to honor her. But does modern society still hold motherhood in high esteem, or do we need to adjust our focus somewhat and prioritize this very important role? What is the role of mothers in today's world? Well, joining us today from Lethbridge are Kelly and Joylyn Stickle. They are the lead pastors at Parallel Church. And Joylyn is a mother of 6. Great to have you with us again. I shouldn't leave out Kelly, who's a father of 6 as well. That doesn't even make sense.
Good rule.
But we're
Not
talking
my day,
about
it's okay.
yeah, but we're talking about moms. So there you go, Joylyn. So do you guys think the perception and the role of mothers has perhaps changed somewhat over the decades? What do you think?
Absolutely. Like, I think if you look back 100 years or to your great grandparents and stuff, motherhood was the role. And most women didn't work outside the home at all there. And so I think that was honored and respected way back when. And it's, yeah, I think moving through the decades, the economy and women's rights and different things have moved it so that the homemaker and the mother at home isn't as, I guess, respected or elevated, and you see that echoed in society, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what impact did your mom have on your life? We'll go to you, Kelly.
Oh, wow. She had a huge impact on my life in multiple ways. I think one of the biggest way, my mom and I were really, really close. She passed away in 2006. And so I think reflecting back on that, you begin to, I don't know, just appreciate her that much more when she's not here in the same way. But I think one of the biggest things that I learned from her, the impact that she had on me is my mom was extremely selfless in that she sacrificed everything for us. I mean, she went to work just so that we could go to Christian school and to get Christian education. She, on top of that, would drive us at her own time, we were 45 minutes away from the school, and she'd drive us back and forth with a group of other kids on top of working and then on top of taking care of the home. And I watched that selflessness and that impact and that sacrifice, and yeah, just eternally grateful.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, some moms are just so incredible, and your mom, Kelly, definitely sounds like that. What about you, Joylyn?
Yeah, my mom is also very selfless and all about her kids. And if you think that 6 kids is a lot, my mom and dad have 16 kids.
What?
Yeah, and they fostered all my life, and they adopted, and just the both of them working together at home, raising children who wouldn't have a home otherwise, really set the tone for us, really. And we've adopted 3 of our children as well. And I think a lot of that was the influence of my mom and my parents, with that selflessness and really just drawing people in who needed love.
Wow, just incredible people. Now, what would you see as some of the most important roles a mother holds that impact our kids and our society?
Yeah, I would say that a mom loves like no other. So they have unconditional love, and I think that's a big part of, like, we have older children and then we have younger children, so we kind of have the 2 chunks. And our older boys, they still come to us and they still want to spend time with us and love on us. And I think, I think that having that openness and that unconditional love really helps with that. And somebody that they can talk to is a big part of motherhood. I remember sometimes the kids would come home from a late night and it'd be 11 or 12 and they'd be like, can we just sit down and talk? And absolutely. Absolutely. So those kind of things are a mom or a dad, but I feel like, there's something with moms that is just unconditional love.
And, obviously we're looking at crazy inflationary times. Things are so expensive. And, we have more single moms now than we ever did before. And of course, economic times are often requiring 2 parents to work. It puts a lot of pressure on moms, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like with moms, they have such the weight of the home, as well as having the finances and economy being low is really tricky with that. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, I spent most of my kiddo's life being a single mom, so I can definitely relate to that. But I haven't seen times like these before with inflation and just the cost of everything going up. I just can't imagine doing it on my own these days. So, any thoughts on ways that the church can offer support to moms?
Yeah, I think it's very, very important for the church to play a role and to come alongside moms and parents as a whole.
Yeah.
If you think about it, I mean, just because we had, a parents, each one of us had parents, doesn't mean that we know how to be one. And just because we were once a kid doesn't know that we know anything about raising one.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's important for the church to provide training and equipping is the main role. Your pastors equip the saints for the work of the ministry, and when you think about it, there's no more important ministry, ever than raising our children and the next generation. So I think we need to equip and come alongside and to walk with and provide training. I think at the same time we also need to come alongside and provide support groups and have small groups of moms that get together and can support one another and share with one another and carry each other's burdens. And, we also like to do, parenting nights or parent nights where we train, but we also take the kids and babysit them and let mom and dad have some fun.
Yeah.
Let moms, have some fun, have a little bit of a break. So little things like that. I think there's ways that the church should do that, but I think it's one of the most important roles that in society, and I do think we have a big job as a church to come alongside parents and to focus on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right there, Kelly. No, for myself, I wouldn't have survived probably if it wasn't for my ladies groups and my mom's groups in the church. So, I mean, just fabulous. Now, what would you say to mothers who may not see themselves as quite measuring up, not being good enough, especially when comparing themselves to other moms out there?
I think you're not alone. Everybody does that. And I feel like social media has been horrible for this because people, they post their highlight reels and they don't see the behind the scenes. And every one of us has a behind the scenes, right? And even if we do have the highlight reels, there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of work with mothering and with disciplining and with taking time for yourself or whatever that goes into the good times. And so if every mother could just understand that they're not alone and we all have our moments of feeling inadequate. We all have our moments. Like Kelly said, it's the biggest role. It's huge. And really, when we have our first child, we're just being born as a mother too. They don't come with instruction books. And so you're learning how that works with your specific child and with, if you have a husband, your specific family dynamic, you're learning that as you go. And so you're going to make mistakes. That's not bad, I guess. You're going to make mistakes as you are learning and growing as a mom.
Mm-hmm. And not to forget grandmothers either, too. So big shout out here to grandmothers because they also get honored on Mother's Day, and they play such an important role as well with children growing up, don't they? I know my mom was right there for me the whole time. So a big shout out to her. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, and I heard a stat just recently that suicide among teens is the second leading cause of death in the U.S. and which is alarming. But they said the stat goes down to zero. Teenagers commit suicide if their grandparents are in the picture and they have a relationship with their grandparents. That's how vital grandmothers and grandparents are to children. So I was like, wow,
that's amazing.
That's stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets me right here for sure.
Yeah. So thankful for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, Joylyn, we don't usually see that many kids in one family these days, and I think most moms likely feel overwhelmed at times, even with a couple of kids. So any advice for mothers on how to stay calm and keep things in a healthy perspective?
Well, I think like every family is different. And so having 2 kids or having 6 kids, it's your journey, right? And so it's not more honorable to have more kids. It's what you put into them and the time that you spend with them. But I think again, not comparing yourself to other people, just building that support around you. If it can be grandparents, that's beautiful. If it can be, like you said, your small groups at church that can help out even in practical ways, like, hey, I need to run to the store and I don't have anyone. Can you come watch my kid? Those kind of things, that is the church. That is what we do. We support each other. And so not seeing that as weak and just understanding that everybody needs a village, and being okay to take time for yourself, doing things that you enjoy. When you come out of that, time, then you're a better mom and you're able to keep calm. And so those are things I've learned over the years. There's always the mom guilt that you have to be like, no, this is better. This is healthy when I can take time away and find that support system that works for your family.
True story. Mom guilt is real.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what have been some of your biggest challenges as a mother, Joylyn?
I think one of the things is not just covering my kids' chores or whatever, like doing things that make it easier in the day rather than thinking long term and being like, my job is not to have friends with my kids at the end of the day. My job is to raise strong, healthy adults. And so if there's a discrepancy in what I'm doing in order to kind of make their life easy or make my life easy in the moment, but it's not growing them as people, I think those were the biggest things that I had to learn as a mom, because it's easier to do it yourself. It's easier to not have them throw fits because they don't want to clean their room or all that. But just keeping in mind, yeah, you are building people to be strong society contributors when they're older. And what's the best way to do that today when they're 5, when they're 6? So I had to learn that for sure.
Wow. And Kelly, any advice for dads as to how to teach their children to honor and respect their mother?
Yeah, I think just to emphasize that for some reason, I think honoring mom in particular is probably the one keystone habit that triggers respect and honor for everyone else in society. So I think it's probably the most important thing. I put more weight on how my boys treated and honored and respect mom than even how they treated and honored and respected me. And there's something that happens if especially young men can honor and respect mom, they will honor and respect their future wife. And if they honor and respect mom, they're going to honor and respect women as a whole and society as a whole.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably one of the biggest keystone habits, one of the biggest things to emphasize as dads. One of the things that I did with my boys, when the older boys now, that when they were 12, is I said, okay, here's one of the rules. You're going to honor and respect your mom, and you're going to have to date your mom before, and she has to give permission before you have the ability to date anyone else. We didn't set an age for them to say, oh, you have to be 16 before you date. We said, no. When mom thinks you're ready to treat a woman right, then she will give permission to you to date. So it was kind of a key.
It was awesome.
It was awesome because when they started taking mom on dates, we knew, oh, there's an interest. What's going on?
It's the girl.
It's the girl. But it was cool. But they had to pay for the date. They had to do all of it to mom to learn how to treat mom. Open doors for her, do all the different things that treat her properly, because then
that's such a great idea. I think every boy should do this. That's a great idea. Kelly, where did you come up with that? Or did you read it somewhere? It's genius, really.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd read a number of books. One of the books that really stood out to me is Raising a Modern Day Knight in reading and talking about boys. But then just seeing the emphasis on moms. I don't know that we read it anywhere. I think we just talked about it and said, hey, what if we were to do this? And one of the things that I always give advice to young girls and who, as a pastor, who come to counseling or whatever and have this boy that they're interested in, one of the things that I always would point out to them is, how does he treat his mom, as the key indicator as to how he's going to treat you in the future. And so I think just in seeing that, observing that, I think we just said, okay, well, let's be intentional about how they treat mom and make that the emphasis.
Wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Both of you, thanks so much for being here today and for sharing all of your wisdom with us. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I could go on and on. I still have more questions for you. But thanks once again for being here.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Kelly and Joy Landstickle are the lead pastors at Parallel Church in Lethbridge. So happy to have them on today. And happy Mother's Day to you, Joylyn.
You as well. Thank you.
And happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers, our mother viewers out there. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.